I'm a very short person. This podium is quite relatively tall. This is the 10th, I don't want to use the word edition, 10th Peace and Reconciliation Conference that Swamiji is organizing. A few years ago, there was a slew of programs he organized, despite all the difficulties. Then I wrote an epistle to him, because epistle is as an English literature you'll understand. It's a very archaic word and higher order word. Epistle to Swamiji. In that epistle, it was a private note. I called him, you are a divine athlete, and you are in a divine hurry to resurrect this world. Because before we could just see that one program is over, there'll be another program. And the mind would be just asked to just gallop like a stallion. So I said, you are in a divine hurry. Ordinary hurry is okay, for personal goals. And Swamiji was so, what shall I say, generous. He appreciated me. So Swamiji, I pay my pranams to Sadhguru and to you. I always have become a staple feature in peace conference valedictories, but my job earlier was to listen to other people. I was fairly good at that and present what they said. But this time, Swamiji has put me in this position of having to use the word, deliver the valedictory address. It won't be an address. I must say that I'm deeply touched to see that this conference is taking place in an institution called Vinayaka Missions Research Foundation. Vinayaka is the remover of all obstacles. Shankatam Tirthavar. Missions. I don't know what you meant by that, madam, but mission. You have this combination. You have a vision and you have a mission. Our past president Abdul Kalam also used to use that word, you see, mission, vision, and so on. And so education is not something of a money-making venture. Education is a mission. That's why so many people, even though they might feel that they are imprisoned here, but still we are here. You never know what goes inside. It's a mission. You are part of this mission. And it's a huge conglomerate, like the Tata conglomerate. Can't even know what are the disciplines that are there, madam, under your institution. So we know some of them come to Swamiji to CPT him as devotees, absolutely courteous, like all the staff that they have trained, the students they have trained, and the faculty they have trained, absolutely courteous, silent, quiet. Their footfalls can hardly be heard. So I'm thankful that I've been given this honor to be speaking in this premises, and I'm quite sure with Sadhguru's grace and Swamiji's venerable presence, effective presence, I should say. You might be venerable, but are you effective? This institution will scale great heights. That is my fervor. I'm not saying this to flatter anybody. In my 33 years of my service, I've never flattered anyone. That's why I never got up the university. They did not even know that I worked there. Okay? So, we are here to look at a topic. I was wondering, this is the third time this topic is being presented by Swamiji, peace and justice. So I was wondering, what should I say this time? Or should I just repeat whatever that was said? But you find that there is a regenerative space within you. It doesn't allow you to die. And that is why I thought, we go back to many things, we also look forward to many things. Sadhguru's famous statement, just let God manage your life. Just let God manage your life, Narayana. This will be present to everyone. It's like a kind of Mahavakya. So how do we look at it? No, just let God manage your life. You don't have any initiative. You don't do anything. You just allow kind of fatalism, or in the name of divine will, you surrender your ability, your intelligence. So much was talked about in the AI session about intelligence and so on. On the other hand, every presentation, every, session topic was presented or configured in the opposite direction. Even challenging positions were given. You are not to simply pay obeisance to old wisdom. As Sri Aurobindo says, you see, peace as part of the old wisdom, old spirituality, that is not what we require today. So I just thought I will just briefly look at, as a student of literature, the relation of law and justice, looking at Shakespeare's Measure for Measure and also Merchant of Venice very, very quickly. Please don't worry. And then that is from the Western point of view, and a few things to say about law. Lawyer Aruna may not like it, or she may endorse it, I really don't know, or it's not even worth listening. Then the Dharmasastras, what kind of texts are they? I'm not going to go into them. I don't know much about them. I owe everything to Swamiji. Swamiji gave me the whole series of books is on History of Dharmasastra by P.V. Kane, Pandurang Kane. So Dharmasastra, are they literature or do they constitute civil law? What are the issues do they take up? Are they relevant? And then we have now civil constitution and the constitutional law. That's something very different from what we follow. If you believe in the Dharmasastra, whether it is Jaimini or anybody, I wouldn't know. So whether it is moral literature or legal literature and so on. And then I just want to come to the kind of a bridging the material world and the spiritual world, or the world for which stands before us, beckoning. Shakespeare captures the universal moral tension within human condition. His views on law are worth pondering in Merchant of Venice and Measure for Measure. The question asked is, society has continuously struggled with what it means to be just, J-U-S-T. Human weakness has often undermined justice because people have subverted laws to their own nefarious ends. Shakespeare addresses society's administration of justice in Merchant of Venice and Measure for Measure. In both, Shakespeare focuses on the fountain from which justice flows. And this was mentioned by most of the speakers in various sessions. That is, the human soul, which is the birthplace of conscience. So when you have deep news or whatever it is, fake news or whatever it is, poor Zelensky, I felt very bad. Zelensky, I love Ukrainian people. And he was not slapped, but short of slapping, Trump just treated him very, very badly. But all those things which that English professor presented, they made it a very sad viewing, you see, the kind of clashes that were made. And so you were insulting a country, a people, a president who just held it out for almost a year, you see, a huge army, and so on. So you ask this question, whether there is this kind of, what can law do about it? What is the fountain of justice? The fountain of justice is the birthplace of conscience. Shakespeare lays open a window into our hearts. This window offers lawyers, Madam Aruna, an opportunity to see how mercy aids the cause of justice. Alexis Tocqueville, the great thinker, and he was a minister in Europe in the 19th century for France. He wrote this important book, Democracy in America, which was translated by Henry Reed. He said, the best possible laws cannot maintain a constitution. How very true. The best possible laws cannot maintain a constitution in spite of the manners of a country. What the latter may turn out to some advantage may unfortunately put other people in the worst situation. So Shakespeare's ideas, now we apply that, we come to see how Shakespeare's ideas about justice help lawyers to understand the interplay between mercy and justice. For this simply captured me. I found out that this is Walter Scott who made this observation. For a lawyer without history or literature is a mechanic, a mere working mason. A lawyer without history or literature is a mechanic, a mere working mason. If he possesses some kind of knowledge of these, he may venture to call himself an architect. Is lawyer a mason or is lawyer an architect? You have law school and so on. I also come on all sides, you see, lineage of judges, lawyers, and so on. My father told me, you do what, kettu kuda po, law padikade, practice pannaren sonnanga, okay? And my grandfather was for 40 years bar president, you see, in Chidambaram. And he really helped the cause of great institutions and so on. And there was no one to beat him in the entire South Arcot district. He helped the Nataraja temple and so on. So, but my father told me, "Nee kettu venalum po, law padikade, and don't become a lawyer." I hope he's happy about it. So, Shakespeare's ideas about justice, you see, help lawyers to understand the interplay between mercy and justice. For a lawyer without history, once again I repeat it, is a mechanic, a mere working mason. If he doesn't possess a knowledge of these, he may venture to call himself an architect if he has them. What you mean is, it is not a letter of law, but is a spirit of law and the whole, space within which it is embedded. And so, in Elizabethan time, you see, they were more worried about the form of law rather than the substance of law. And therefore, there was a problem in handling people. And we see that this kind of thing happens very often in our own country, whether it's a form of law or the spirit of law. In Merchant of Venice, I don't have to go into all that, you see. There is a Jew, and he has given money to Antonio. Antonio is supposed to return the money. He has taken it for the cause of helping his friend Bassanio, who loves Portia. But Antonio is not able to give the money back, and Shylock is asking for his pound of flesh. That is why you have the English idiom, you ask for the pound of flesh. It is given as a bond. And so if you cannot return your money, you give me a pound of your flesh. And it becomes a legal battle, Madam Aruna. You know this, of course, story very well. And then Portia comes dressed as a lawyer. And she asks this question. And she asks Shylock to just accommodate and change and so on. He refuses because Shylock is insisting on the letter of law rather than the spirit of law. But if you just allow that, if he sheds the life of, he takes away the pound of flesh of Antonio, he will shed blood, and that man will be dead. And therefore, you will be killing a Venetian. And for killing a Venetian, you will have to face a great, a legal punishment. So, Portia was trying to save him. And in that process, a great verse, great poetry is uttered by Portia. And most of you may know the quality of mercy. She tells Shylock. Shylock is like, I have great sympathy for him. Jews have been condemned even in Shakespeare. Very unfortunate. There are two Jews there, Malvolio and Shylock. Both of them have been just sent out. And poor Shylock is made to convert to Christianity. That's the only way by which he can be saved. I'm not talking against any religion, but there is no option for poor Shylock. He was very, very adamant. But the greatest poetry on mercy comes in this kind of situation. And here is Portia who says, the quality of mercy is not strained. Mercy, okay? That kind of, throw your mercy and compassion at the people, okay? That is not mercy. The quality of mercy is not strained. Whatever mother does to us, you hardly see the strain of it. You see the love of it. So the quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth like a gentle rain. It droppeth like it's not a tsunami. It's not a flood. It's not a tornado. It droppeth like a gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It's twice blessed. This is something which you will feel, you see, when you go to Sri Vishnu Mohan Foundation, and because of Swamiji's presence, you also feel it here. It blesseth him that gives, and blesseth him that takes. That is mercy. It blesseth him that gives, and blesseth him that takes. It is the mightiest in the mightiest. So, what is that Russian president's name? Putin or Putin. I always call him Putin because it looks like puking, okay? But Putin may be, you may be the mightiest, or Trump for that matter. You may be the mightiest, and yet it is the mightiest in the mightiest. You are the mightiest, you think. But you are not the mightiest. There is a mightiest within you. And earthly power doth then show like God's mercy. So how can you connect earthly power with divine power? It does show. There are occasions when the man, the human self rises to greatest visionary level. Then it reaches, approximates, as it is put in romantic criticism, it approximates to the condition of divine mercy. And therefore, Portia says, earthly power then shows like God's mercy. And then what happens? The most important phrase comes here, mercy, when mercy seasons justice. This is the most famous phrase in Shakespeare. Mercy seasons justice. Seasons, summer, avaka urga season pandrathu. Season word English la irukku. You season something. But here, how beautifully Shakespeare presents it, you see. When God's mercy seasons justice. Justice can be absolutely neutral. It can be in matter of letter. But when mercy seasons justice, this is the way we learn English. Okay. So, it seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, she tells him, be merciful. Take thrice the money. But he says, no. He realizes, you see, his bond, he's very particular about his bond. He does not want to yield, and therefore he says, no, I want my pound of flesh. Then Portia says, all right, if you take the pound of flesh from Antonio, then you will shed blood. And that is not in your bond. Shedding the blood of Antonio is not in the bond. And therefore you become a culprit according to Venetian law, and you will be punished. So this is a Shylock, you see, who wanted to stick to the letter of law, as I said. And therefore he is just his pound of flesh he wants, and he is then shown his place. And what did I understand from it? A door is opened for him by Portia. A door between mercy and justice. But you are not ready to walk through the door. Okay? You would rather walk into a trap than walk through a door. And Shylock chooses the door be not open. So this is one thing. The other play, you may not know much about this, but it is just excites my mind. The whole play is about justice versus mercy. Measure for measure. You will all know that it's an Old Testament idea. An eye for eye and tooth for tooth and so on. And in many of our villages, you still have that idea. My honor is taken away and your honor will be destroyed. Honor, killing, so that's an Old Testament idea, as I say, in Christian history of Christian legal literature and so on. So justice in the New Testament is showing mercy. Justice in the Old Testament is the other one. That is the, the spirit of Merchant of Venice. In the measure for measure, this idea is taken away to a greater height and more individual, challenging level, you see. That is why teaching measure for measure in a class is a very great challenge. And I have done it till the end of my career, you see. So it is something. What happens is, when you impose a law, abolish an institution or abolish a practice, then it creates a great, tremendous stress upon a whole community. In this particular play, what is abolished is brothel house. Our Swamiji has given us total freedom to talk about anything. There is this bestial floor of human life. Okay? All of us want to be better, but there is a bestial floor on which we walk. And so there is this brothel house which is just, they closed down the brothel house because the ruler thinks that there is a kind of a carnality in Vienna, and therefore it should be purified, a kind of puritanical move. Unfortunately, a very young man, you see, he just is charged with fornication. Fornication is getting a girl with a child before the solemnizing of the wedding. And therefore, the law demands the death of that person. Okay, Claudio, his name is Claudio. And he has a sister who is going to become a nun. She is going to enter into nunnery. And so Isabel, that name is Isabel. Antonio is the deputy. So she is asked to go and plead with Antonio for the life of this person. But this deputy says, nothing doing. A crime is committed and he has to die. That fellow is hardly 23 or 24. You have a problem. What happens? One more interesting thing there. When the brothel houses are closed, there are two important women who run the brothel and men who aid them. And this woman is saying, "Ayyo, in Todil Poche, I have lost my thing." You feel in the classroom, or in a classroom where there are 20-year-old people are there, I have taught it, okay? Brothel house, எனக்கு profession போச்சு. You never thought of it earlier as a profession. இப்போ மயிலாப்பூர்ல வந்து ஒரு மார்க்கெட்டே ரிமூவ் பண்ணிடுறாங்க. Places are demolished. Then they say, எங்க வாழ்வாதாரம் போச்சுங்கிறாங்க. Our life is gone. So running a brothel is also a kind of a profession. And she has lost her varumbadi. She has lost her income and so on. So how does the state provide for such people? How does the state provide for the individual morality and also collective morality and also take care of such things? And then this deputy is absolutely adamant. He says, "I will not relent. Your brother has to die." Then comes one of the greatest verses. Isabel says, "Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant." Even though it is nearing 1:30, please listen to this in life, especially in the morning, whatever was presented about Europe and so on. See, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant. You have the full authority, full power, and yet please think before you use it. Putin or Trump, they have the giant's power, but can they exercise it like that? It is tyrannous to use it like a giant. There is so much more, but I'm not going into that. Otherwise, there will be kind of a protest here, revolt here. The tummy is revolting. And I just want to say a few things by way of coming to take a space where you have a higher self. I mentioned Dharmasastra. In the Dharmasastra text, which I tried to read with the help of commentaries, there is great injustice done to women and also great injustice done to the deprived classes of society, deprived sections of society. And in all the deliberations here, I never came across any such word all these 3 days. I was listening carefully. But in the Dharmasastra text, I'm not saying they're all of the same quality. The question of sati, the question of treating widowhood, asceticism of widow, remarriage of people, and so on. What kind of laws were there? That's why I raised the question, is this legal literature or moral literature? What kind of binding Dharmasastras had on our society? Even though there is a constitutional law, civil law now, Dharmasastra still governs our lives in some form or other. So, except for Vishnu Smriti, which just said that sati should not be committed, Angiras said a woman who has lost her husband should die after the husband in case the husband is away. It's called anu marana. Anuna pinnadi varudhu, marana is that which happens. And therefore, even Manusmriti does not prescribe sati, but it has very strict rules about widow asceticism and so on. Parashara is the only one, Parashara Smriti is the only one who say widow can remarry. There is a kind of a generous aspect that is presented here. So I read most of them, you see. There is a latest book, Widows in Hindu Laws, by David Brick, Oxford University Press, 2023. It just says, ultimately, these are the major issues, and today also in some form or other they may be operating, not exactly in the same way. My idea in quoting the Dharmasastra, presenting the Dharmasastra point of view here is, ostracization is some kind of injustice. When you ostracize people, it is some kind of injustice. What do we do with that? See, in some form or other, the society may be just looking at it. Now, going back to our tradition, everybody said there is a solution in the tradition and so on. Even Mahesh presented a whole list of things that are possible. I was thinking of two instances in history. One is Acharya Ramanuja in the 10th century. He was a very, a friendly rebel. He was not a Russian rebel, he was a friendly rebel. But in the English biography of Ramanuja, first was published in 1907, you see, by Bharati Vidya Bhavan, it was mentioned by Alkundavilli Govindacharya that Ramanuja admitted the legality and the expediency of caste. So, caste is something legal and there is expediency. But at the same time, he found ways for helping people to go beyond, without violating the law, go beyond the legality and expediency of caste. The other thing is Raghavendra Swami, who was a later Dvaita saint, to see how he wanted to build a Brindavan in a particular place. That Brindavan belonged to the Nawab, Muslim Nawab, and there is a kind of negotiation, and finally this is during the time of East India Company. And that Brindavan, the Nawab comes and allows him to build that Brindavan. These are all the areas, these are all the examples which show that our country has experiential ways of just solving the problem, not through Dharma Shastra, not through kind of edicts and so on. And then I just thought, I'll come very quickly to the end. There is a prayer for peace, which the mother of Sri Aurobindo wrote. I'll end with that. Peace, peace upon all earth. Not the peace of inconscient sleep. Aurobindo and mother used the word inconscient nations and so on. Not the peace of inconscient sleep or self-satisfied inertia. Not the peace of self-forgetful ignorance and a dark, heavy indifference. But the place of the omnipotent force, the peace of perfect communion, the peace of integral awakening. When I looked at all these people, I must say something more and not end with this kind of prayer. 6-7 months ago, Sri Ratan Tata died. And Ratan Tata lived and talked about the aspirational generation. You are all the aspirational generation. We are not even looking at his interviews. Please read his interviews, go through, listen to his voice of wisdom and calm. He talks about the aspirational generation, unicorn, the word was mentioned, you see, the young entrepreneurs. And at one point he says, you have immense future. There is a fire in your belly. There is a glint in your eye. He says that in the Tycoon in Hubli. Okay? At the age of 74, he just flew his jet. And he says, not because I had a jet I flew down, but because I see that fire in you. I may not live. He says that. I may not live that long, but I may be elsewhere. But I want to see this India rise, and I'll be happy to see that. At that point, he says, this question is also asked, is this something of a kind of an opportunity, or is it also a responsibility? When you become the young generation, the aspirational generation, you know, the cricket term today, Gen Bold. Don't you see that? All our cricket teams are called Gen Bold, whether it's Abhishek Sharma or whoever it is who's hit the fastest century, you see, in T20 game and so on. So Gen Bold, you are in that kind of a bracket, shall we say. So what do you want to do? Do you want only the opportunity, or do you also have a responsibility? And that is why, remember Sri Ratan Tata, without any kind of ado, without any kind of spiritual overt practice, he lived for us, a Mahatma. And if you go through that, you will realize what is peace, how it is something of a kind of a constructive thing, not mere absence of violence, but a positive thing. Thank you so much. This is not the way I speak, but...
Thank you, ma'am.